Penn State University was bullied into removing a tweet that included conservative students in a list of diverse groups who are welcome on that campus. The tweet was meant to show the university's commitment to inclusion. In a related story, no one on the entire PSU faculty, staff, or student body could be found able to define the word irony. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we kick things off at Penn State University after the campus liberal arts department, liberal arts, which is very liberal, dared to tweet something unthinkably open-minded. A long tweet, show the tweet, Mike, a tweet of all the constituency groups that are welcome on campus, and there are Black kids are welcome, and feminists are welcome, and environmentalists, and all the whole gamut of the liberal universe is mentioned in that tweet. And they actually put in the word conservative students. Conservative kids are actually welcome on this campus. Well, in no time flat, the outrage of the student body compelled the liberal arts program to pull it down. They were quickly shamed by a leftist mob, and they deleted it. And their answer for deleting it is like, well, we pay close attention to how our emails are received. And because this one was received badly, we're taking it down. You got to give them credit for doing it. Then you got to call them out for not having the guts to stand by it, right? I mean, you did the right thing. You one little item tick for non-progressive students, but then you caved immediately.
Well, you just attempted to do a voice of an administrator, but you haven't had as much practice as me. So I'll get the exact quote from Penn State Director of Strategic Communications, William Hessert Jr. He says that while the tweet was deleted because while it was meant to express the inclusive, democratic, and participatory values of the liberal arts, the message was not being received well, and it is important for us that our message be received as intended. While we do not believe in deleting our posts, given the sensitivities of the matter, we felt that it was better to remove it.
So, in order to prove that we're inclusive, we have to defend non-liberal speech. But the fact is that you didn't like it, so we're going to take it down.
Yep.
So in other words, his argument undercuts the entire message. He's too cowardly to come out and say, we made a mistake by including conservatives. What he said was, well, we did our best to show you what we really believe, but what we believe is unpopular with our students, so we don't really believe it after all. Is that pretty much what happened?
Yeah, and realistically, if you look at the entire tweet, it's just like, why even put this stupid tweet out to begin with? They break the groups down. It does say to all females, as if we need, which is probably, I haven't looked up the stats, but probably more than half of the students at Penn State are female because there are more females statistically across the nation who go to college. And then at the end, of course, it's all students belong here. So why even put this whole stupid thing out? But that's what they do. And the Daily Collegian, which is Penn State's student newspaper, they said, hey, let's get some opinions from the students. What do they say about this tweet? And according to one student, conservatives in the United States do not live in a system that was built from the blood and trauma of their ancestors, a system that continues to put down people who look like their ancestors every day.
And listen to the hypocrisy and the stupidity of
Yeah,
that. I mean, you really do think that conservatives are all rich white guys.
They really do.
This is how utterly shallow the thinking of these college kids are. That to be a conservative means you must be really pasty and rich. Forget the African-American conservatives who are out there. Forget the women who are conservative
What
out
is
there.
a conservative? I bet they couldn't even define because
they would define it as white rich guys.
Exactly.
Cisgendered. Yep.
Wasps. It's all the wasps. As we
and
talked
this is
about.
the problem. I mean, this is what's so wrong with all this. I guarantee you, if you had put Jerry Sandusky and a bowl and a basket full of soap, right, on that list, right, and a whole cadre of middle school students showering together, it would have gotten less grief less fast at Penn State University than daring to mention conservatives. These are the same cult bots at Penn State University who defended the Joe Paterno statue, right? Take down Columbus and burn it, but Joe Pa can't go, right? This is what's happening here at Penn State University. And again, it shows you one of the things we said before. Why is a college education now a dangerous thing? It used to be a laughable thing for the last 10, 15 years. It's been kind of a joke. Now it's not funny anymore. A college degree now, paying all that money, getting all that debt, is a dangerous thing because it is turning out terminally stupid students who are unable to discern that for something like this, right? The school said we're all about inclusion, so we're including everybody instead of including conservatives, at which point the student body says, uninclude the students that are conservative. Uninclude them. And the university says yes, all the while promoting our statement of inclusion.
Exactly. And again, at the end, all students.
Why not include soaping up pedophiles?
No, please.
Why not?
No, because
there would be less grief over Jerry Sandusky than there would be daring to suggest that conservative kids had a right to be on campus.
Yes, but see, the thing is they don't learn about the evils of Jerry Sandusky or Paterno or any of that in the classroom. What they learn in the classroom is that the blood and trauma of the ancestors was, the system here in America was built on that. Anyway, conservatives, yeah. We have another student who says that her voice as an African American was drowned out by that tweet. A tweet drowned out her voice. She says the part of this statement I actually agree with. The fact that Penn State cannot even come up with their own flyer to spew their lies of solidarity and support is disgusting. Now that part I agree with, but the fact that she's claiming her voice was drowned out by a tweet.
Because the word conservative was one word in a long tweet, her voice has been drowned out.
Exactly.
We are Penn State.
Now, if you're drinking anything or eating anything, just set it down for a moment because I want you to really grasp this headline.
Is grasp the word you really want to use here?
Yes, it is. Upward thrusting buildings ejaculating into the sky. Do buildings have to be so sexist? Yes, that is an actual headline from an actual publication over in the UK known as The Guardian, where they decided to run an article by feminist geography professor Leslie Kern. Now, she's taking on the sexism that exists in buildings when she's not being the director of the Women and Gender Studies at Mount Allison University, which is actually in New Brunswick, Canada.
How can she be bothered by buildings that look like penises when she works at a place called a mount? Is that not just rape? Is that not rape culture? She's not bothered by working in an organization that calls itself Mount.
But it's Allison.
Mount.
They're telling Mount Allison.
Allison's being mounted in the building you work in, and you're worried about these spire. And you know what she never did? What she doesn't do in her article? She doesn't call out Muslim minarets.
This is true.
Because Muslim minarets are pretty penile, right? But notice that the only cities that are guilty of this kind of feminist, this rape culture are Western cities. Literally what this feminist geographer is saying, because Western buildings jump and shoot up into the sky, this is sexism, this is white supremacy.
Let me give you, in her own words, she begins, glass ceilings and phallic towers, mean streets and dark alleys, road names and statues of men. From the physical to the metaphorical, the city is filled with reminders of masculine power. And yet we rarely talk of the urban landscape as an active participant in gender inequality. A building, no matter how phallic, isn't misogynist, is it? Surely a skyscraper isn't responsible for sexual harassment, the wage gap, or even the glass ceiling, whether it has a literal one on top or not. That said, our built environments can still reflect patterns of gender-based discrimination. To imagine the city and its structures as neutral places where complicated human social relations are staged is to ignore the simple fact that people built these places.
Shorthand, not only do we have to take down your statues, not only do we have to purge your libraries of all the white supremacist books that have ever been written, we now have to tear down all your buildings. Because your buildings in Western culture signify what? And what does that mean about Christian churches that have domes? I mean, aren't domes then mammary?
There it is.
Are there not manholes? Are there not hills and curves? Right?
All the curves.
Are not there winding rivers, right?
Well, I wanna read one of her paragraphs about how she blames the system because
it's the system's fault.
It's the system's fault. If the sexism of the city began and ended with architectural symbolism, I would have happily written a grad school essay about this, then turned my attention to more pressing matters.
No, you wouldn't gladly have done that.
But society's historical and ongoing ideas about the proper gender roles for men and women organized along a narrow binary, are built right into our cities, and they still matter. They matter to me as a mother. They matter to me as a busy professor who often finds herself in strange cities, wondering if it's okay to pop into the neighborhood pub alone. Why would you you have a drinking problem that you have to just go to the pub alone on work trips?
But here's the thing. Do we have a contagion of women walking into pubs and coming out raped? Because
nope.
that doesn't seem to be happening, honey.
That's true.
Again, your assumptions about what buildings are.
I'm not done.
I know you're not.
I have more.
I know. I just got to throw this out there, though. Your assumptions about buildings are your same assumptions about pubs. She assumes everything is out to get her. But go ahead.
Okay. Ask any woman who's tried to bring a pram onto a bus. Also, like...
That would be a baby carriage.
There you go.
Right? Is that what that is?
Look at
Pram?
you.
Mm-hmm.
Those Canadians. Breastfeed in a park or go for a jog at night. You should never go... Man, woman, don't go for a jog at night. That's just dangerous.
With all due respect, women are whipping out their boobs and feeding babies everywhere. What are you talking about? You're telling me that when you try to get a baby carriage on a bus, people what do they do? Throw you off? Or are you just mad that they give you a dirty look? What exactly is it that happens when you're engaging in the... You know what she hates? She hates being a mother.
Ooh, maybe.
Every aspect of maternity seems to have bothered her.
A little bit there. The ending here is she intuitively understands the message the city sends her. This place is not for you.
All cities, just the cities.
The cities.
Cities send, and what should they be?
Warm, fuzzy feeling.
Seriously, I mean, tell us what the solution then is. If buildings and these kind of things that occupy most cityscapes in the entire world are heedlessly masculine, what do you replace them with?
Well, it seems to be, as you kind of hinted at here, that she is hoping to find comfort in inanimate objects, but being a mother and having an animate object, a child there, seems to really... not be a good thing for her either.
Who in the world got this chick pregnant? What kind of guy do you have to be to have married this and gotten her pregnant?
Who knows?
I mean, clearly there's a disconnect here. Can you imagine what it's like being her husband? Can you imagine?
All right, well, we're going to head a little bit south out of the Canada into Maine. Canada, where students at Bowdoin College in Maine, if they have no life at all, they could have read in the student newspaper that the Bowdoin Orient, that's the student newspaper, they wrote an article by the editorial board praising the school for an email announcing that the college would be matching donations to all of these following organizations: Black Lives Matter, the NAACP, Maine Community Foundation's Racial Equity Program, Maine Inside Out, Maine Youth Justice, and the For Us, By Us Fund. Now, the board, the editorial board, went on to say that it is equally important that the college see it as a first step, not a last step, a first step. There's much more to be done. And here's where this story gets interesting, because the editorial board decided that they put a little some statistics out about money and who should be paying this money. They say 20.4% of Bowdoin students come from the wealthiest 1% of American households, and that the median family income of the school is $195,900. So privileged students should leverage that privilege to stop injustice. And bail funds are a great place to start. So they're saying you should be paying the money. And who's actually paying this money? Well, it's the parents. Economically privileged students, as they say, are encouraged to talk with their parents about their responsibility to combat the systemic racism by donating what they can.
So,
yes.
Moms and dads who send their kids to incredibly overpriced liberal arts colleges in places like Bowdoin, Maine. Do you understand what's happening now? No longer are they going there and learning how to hate you before they move out and get jobs. Now they are being coached while they're on campus, and you're paying $60,000, $70,000 a year for the privilege of having those little brats there. They're now coming back to you and telling you, hey, Daddy, the car you bought me. Hey, Dada. I guess it would be New England. Father. The car you bought me. And the tuition you're paying. And all of the room and board that you're supporting me with. Katharine Hepburn. I just went all Katharine Hepburn. Spencer Tracy. I just went all Katharine Hepburn. All those things you're paying for me, Father, they're not enough. You need to pay the bail for all the Black Lives Matter protesters who've been arrested around the country. It is your white privilege to do so. And isn't it amazing that the one lesson that colleges and college newspapers want to put in the head of every college kid, somebody has to pay for this, but it's not you. It's not the school kid, it's not the activist, it's not the Antifa member, it's not the Black Lives Matter member. No, somebody else has to pay, not just for me to get my free education, but for every problematic racial incident in the history of the country. At this point you ask yourself, credibly, what useful function do universities fill? If we could just separate those aspects of college that require accreditation. In other words, you need a certain kind of a credit to become a lawyer. If you want to be a doctor, you have a certain set of credentials. You want to be a teacher, you have to get a teaching certificate. What if we were able to divorce those from colleges? You could, if you want to be a medical doctor, go to a medical clinic and learn there, right? Look, with all due respect, if you're 20 years old and you want to be a doctor, you don't need to sit in classrooms for 2 years of sociology and English and philosophy classes. Go to a hospital. Let the hospitals do it. If you want to be accredited to be a teacher, let the schools do it. You want to be a lawyer? Go to a law undergraduate school. If we could separate the accreditation policy from these universities, they literally would have no purpose to serve. We could get rid of them. We could dispense with them, right? Let people get accredited by people, in their own field. Let doctors train young doctors how to be older doctors. Let them do it outside of the university system. Let teachers be taught outside of the big universities how to teach. Hint, it doesn't require more than maybe 1 semester of basic classroom management classes. That's all. Go out and learn what you want to do, and then you can teach it. If we could divorce the accreditation process from the universities, there would literally be no need for these universities at all.
In the shorthand of what you're saying, you just want everyone to, you do you.
Well, you do you. You do you.
Just for the record, I took the liberty of looking up how much it costs to go to Bowdoin.
Yeah, was it? Let me guess. For a year,
Are you doing a whole year?
$57,000 a year tuition.
Just a little bit more, dear.
How much?
You're talking $28,000 per semester.
56.
Just in tuition. Added on, you're looking at 32 to 34. If not more, with all the other extras.
I will say,
per semester.
Patting myself on the shoulder.
I didn't see it.
So much that I've dislocated my shoulder. If I said 57, 18,
Math. Can't do the math.
Can't do it.
Can't do
if you
math.
subtract the room and board, I was pretty close. I said 57,000.
But no cigar.
No cigar. So over 60 grand a year, more than it costs to go to Harvard.
Harvard.
More than it costs to go to Harvard, to go to Bowdoin College.
Finally, time for some real education. The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark, is a 1995 book by famed astrophysicist Carl Sagan. The purpose of the book is to explain the scientific method to lay people, like me, and encourage them to think critically and skeptically. Sagan distinguishes between ideas that are considered valid science and those that can be labeled pseudoscience. When new ideas are offered for consideration, Sagan argues that they should be tested by means of skeptical thinking, and should stand up to rigorous questioning.
Major props to Carl Sagan. This was 96. Doesn't 1996 seem like 5 lifetimes ago when you consider what's happened in the last 5 years in this country? It seems like it's the 1950s. And what Sagan said is exactly right. This is the scientific method. Any proposition, any worldview, any personal belief of yours, you're better off greeting it with skepticism. Start skeptically and work through the skepticism to see if what you think you believe actually holds basic salt, holds basic water. Well, I want to read you something else that Sagan wrote in 1995. He died in 1996. This passage from Demon-Haunted World. Tell me, after I read this to you, that this is not exactly what has happened in the last 25 years. I have a foreboding, a fear, of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the key manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost their ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what is true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media. The 30-second sound bites now, down to 10 seconds or less, the lowest common denominator programming, the credulous presentations of pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Tell me that is not exactly what's happened. All the information that we have access to, more than ever in human history, is now in the hands of a very small group of social media platforms and companies like Google. To tell the 10-second news bite, the average 20-something will watch something for 5 and 7 seconds before tuning out of it. The idea that we have jettisoned critical thinking and real religion for pseudoscience, transgenderism, anybody? And superstition. What have we replaced critical thinking with? This idea that Sagan is arguing for, that we should approach all of our most deeply held tenets first skeptically. Notice what happens if you are skeptical of Black Lives Matter. You're a racist and you're canceled. What happens if you stand up to the wanton destruction of monuments that have nothing to do with race? You are a bigot. Skepticism has been replaced by superstition. What Sagan was saying is something we've said many times. Progressivism is a religion. It is a cult religion. It is a dangerous religion. It is orthodox. It is dogmatic. It is inquisitorial. And it is persecutorial. If you don't sign on uncritically and without any skepticism to the new tenets of progressivism, they will literally and or metaphorically burn you at the stake. It is all the horrors you get when critical faculty and right religion vanish from society in the name of politics.
And now you know the rest of the story. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and Parler. If you have a question for our Friday Q&A, visit freedomproject.com/askduke or send us a message on the social media. As a reminder, Freedom Project Academy's live online school is enrolling new students for just one more week. That's all you have, one more week. Request your free packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com. Now, we're going to wrap things up with a fun fact of the day. Did you know that up in the old Maine, the lobster actually, once upon a time, back in the old days, the colonial days, was shunned as being a poor man's food? They actually gave the crustacean that would pile in just these big heaps out to slaves and out to the paupers, and then any uncooked or unwanted already cooked lobster was given to the pigs.
And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and until next time, have yourself a lobster po' boy.